I guess we're here a little early relative to the slate, but this is when I can do it. And Bobby's going to be joining us probably in about, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour, something like that. So we're going to go over what we have um, as of now. We'll talk about some hockey maybe also, and basketball. And this is a strange day because everybody um, seems to be waiting for all this new value to come on in, but it just doesn't seem to be the case. So we're going to have to deal with what we have. But I do want to talk about something, I guess, somewhat interesting. I'm going to put my projections up, and I'll probably do another run at some point. But I want to show you something, and it brings up an interesting dilemma. So let me pull up my screen. Okay, this is my sheets for the NBA slate as of, maybe 20 minutes ago. I mean, I don't think anything's changed since then. You still have Trey Jones. It's questionable, I'm assuming, him playing. But what do you do when you have a situation like this where the projections look like this? Now, when I say that, I mean, I'm ranking these by point per dollar, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, literally 7 of the top 10 values being from Utah. What do you do with that? Like, how do you construct? Like, how do you build a lineup with that? Well, the good news is that you really, well, we'll get back to that. But it does provide an interesting dilemma because you don't want to play 6 guys from Utah. And this is one of those things where I think SaberSim kind of fails when you run your lineups through SaberSim without any adjustments. It'll give you 5, 6, and sometimes 6-man stacks where you just don't instinctively. It just doesn't seem like those could ever win. I mean, you could maybe min cash or something like that, but on a slate that's this big, it just seems that there's way too much negative correlation by playing 5 or 6 guys on the same team. Especially when they're taken literally from each other. So that's a question that you're gonna have to handle. Like how do you deal with that? The other thing I'd like to do, the way I want to build, is I look at it 2 ways. First, I look at it by point per dollar, and you'll see a whole bunch of Utahs and these 2 San Antonio guys. The first thing I look at before I come back is I do see Sochan, at least right now, does not have a very high ownership percentage. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the next thing I'll do is you rank these not by straight point per dollar by value, but by Sheets value score, which, again, for those of you who are here for the first time or haven't heard this explained in a while, that's my own kind of combination of both raw points and value. And that kind of gives a little bit more of a bump to the expensive guys. So the first thing I want to look at is, do any of these guys stand out? And the quick answer is no. First of all, from a slate over slate perspective, sometimes you get guys that are at the top with Sheets value scores of 200. So here, I mean, none of these guys rate to be that great, which kind of leads to the description of the slate, which I talked about earlier. It's probably not going to be that high scoring. You didn't see, at least to this point, any kind of slam dunk cheapo value that's cropped up. Like, for example, let me go back to the points per dollar view for a minute. I mean, it's very rare that you don't have anybody projecting at 6x. You usually have somebody. So the question is kind of how to handle that. So let's resort this by Sheets value score. So you could play probably one of these guys if you want, Luka, Ja, or Durant, but probably not both. Probably not 2. So what I think is probably wise is if you could start by seeing if there's any kind of like game correlation in here, including one of the guys with the high, raw points. So if you could put Luka with, who the hell will he even play? Hold on a minute. Hang on a second. So if you could pair Luka with a Clipper, that would be nice. Or if you could pair Morant with a Saint, with a Pelican, that would be nice. Or if you could pair Durant with a King, that would be nice. So I think you kind of see where I'm headed with this. Next thing you'll see is that in addition to Durant, you have two guys from the Sacramento side showing up. So what I think, and then what you also see, by the way, is two Knicks showing up with the Utah. So I think that's probably what you want to, but you probably want to do is in a situation like this, I think you do want to give an extra bump to the lineups where you could put the two teams together. So I would probably try to do something with, no problem, Eric. I would probably try to do something with Durant and Sabonis, or Durant and Fox. I don't think you can play all three of them. But let's take a look just for fun. Let's hand build a lineup with all those guys and see what that leads us with. So if we were going to try to do three guys, no, I know the more the better, but I don't know if you can afford it. So if you want to play Durant and Fox and Sabonis, I mean, the problem is it really leaves you with very little to work with on a slate where the value kind of stinks. So so that's the first thing, is you can't play both. You can't play all three. So the next thing you want to think about is, can you play Durant with one of them? And that is probably not a big deal, Even though, when you look at 49.33 a player just to do this, if we go back, and we could have Saberson build for us, but it's kind of cool from time to time to visualize this. If you go back to this point per dollar ranking, trying to find guys at 4,900, I mean, you can, you play like Vanderbilt, Olynyk, Sexton. So you could definitely get away with that, So that's probably the way I would build, is I would build either with like Durant, Sabonis like that, or again, you go back to this Knicks game where you could play. Let's start with, the more obvious. We'll start with Markkanen and Randall, and you could probably play a third from here and get that done. So what I would do is I would go back to here at first C. So there'd be Markkanen, Clarkson, Randall, and Brunson. So, I mean, if you wanted to, you could play all four of these. You play Clarkson, Brunson, Markkanen, and Randall, and you leave 53.25. And there's enough value to make this work. Now, what this doesn't do is play one of the studs, But like I said, this is a slate that is just not conducive to that. So that's the first thing. Second of all, let me, again, before I go back to DraftKings, answer some individual questions. Let me go to FanDuel and see what's really different over there. All right, let me pull up FanDuel. Okay. So in FanDuel, again, same thing we do before. First we rate by sheets value score. What do we got? No real standout. Luka maybe, but it's really not that great of a play when you think about it. I mean, you'd like to see these scores a little bit higher. And then we look and we rate them by point per dollar, and yeah, so it seems like kind of a straightforward approach. It's pretty much the same as I kind of recommended over at DraftKings, is probably try to get some kind of correlation. So if you're playing FanDuel, you'd probably again want to go to some Durant's with Markkanen, or something like that, or you go to the Sacramento game, you go with Fox. Excuse me, you can go with, I'm sorry, Durant, not with Markkanen. Durant would be with Fox. Markkanen would be with the Knicks guys. Now you're asking. Now let's go to some of these individual questions here, and then I will also. So you're saying. So let's just go one by one. Am I paying for PG-13? No, I don't think I'm going to. He just doesn't show up well enough in projections for me. Do I like Joval tonight? I don't. Again, I'm just. I just don't think I'm getting to that. I think Sabonis is a real standout at center. You're saying hard not to like Brooklyn, Sacramento, and Grizz Pels. Yeah, I don't quite. I'm not quite getting to as much of the Pels side of it. That's the problem. If you did, right, like you said, and this answers the Zion question, right? So Zion pairs with Ja. So again, that's what I would try to do. Is I would probably try to play lineups with Ja and Zion together. I would probably try to play lineups with Durant and either Sabonis or Fox together. I would try to play lineups with Markkanen with Randall and Brunson together. Now, with you saying Zion is out, I believe that makes the case for Zion being somewhat a poor play. So I would not play Zion with Morant. However, what that is going to do is it's going to require us to redo our projections to see. So here's probably the value that we were looking for. Okay, so it looks as though the guys are going to show up. I'm going to just change these right now. I'll do a full run when I get off here, but let me see. Wait, I don't want to do that. Let me just see who gets the pop. It looks as though Valanciunas will become a better play, and then Trey Murphy, Herbert Jones, they get bumps. Larry Nance Jr., he'll get a bump as well. So what it does is it doesn't provide any cheaper, greater value. It just provides more kind of okay value. So it opened up the slate a little bit with respect to options, but yeah. Hey, what's up, Jeremiah? I don't remember Wendy. I don't believe that doesn't mean I didn't meet her. I'm just the worst. I got you on the 75-inch. Oh, okay, very nice. Okay. So let me see if I can update. You know what I'll do? I'll wait till 6:30 when Bobby comes and start talking to you about stuff. Then I will update the projections. But for now, what I could do is do a new build with the New Orleans News. And let me just see what it looks like in SaberSim. So yeah, so shows what I know. It's actually getting a whole bunch of the Trey Murphy. As a matter of fact, current runs would almost lock Trey Murphy in. So that is very important. Um, and it does just create, better value. I mean, sort of, just more value. But I still think the overall build process is the same. Like I would try to now see what I said. Like see what I was saying before. So the SaberSim is giving me now 5 Jazz, and that just can't be the right way to play. So I would actually, after I made a build, I would go in here and I would remove all of these stacks with like 5 players from one team. So that's one thing I would do. See any other news coming out here? Well, somebody let me know when there's no news. Yeah, that's the thing. There's so much of this Jazz, but it's sort of fraudulent. I don't know how to describe this, but it's sort of fraudulent. Like you can't play 5 of them. It just doesn't make any sense. So we're gonna Jose Alvarado, is he in play? Yeah, so what I would do especially if I was using SaberSim, I would limit the amount of Jazz that I would get to. You're only getting 3 Jazz on FanDuel. Yeah, that makes I think 3 is more. I think 3 is more reasonable. Now, David is suggesting that I go a different route, that we should consider Luka pairing with Reggie Jackson and Hardaway. Well, we'll give that a look. I mean, the concept is the same, so we'll definitely give that a look. I don't think I've ever played. Not ever played, but I usually don't play Hardaway. That doesn't mean he's not playable. Yeah, I think the same concept. You know what I mean? Like I think that if you do play Luka, I would want to play him alongside of somebody from the Clippers. But boy, oh boy, you're really not. You're really not getting too much value out of anybody from the Clippers here. George looks like a kind of a rotten play. I guess. I mean, even Reggie Jackson, and where is Reggie Jackson on today's? I mean, he looks pretty awful. I don't know. I have to. John Wallback. I have to. I don't want to say veto because you could, obviously you play whoever you want, but I have to give the Sheets disapproval to the Dallas to the Dallas Clipper stack. You guys are big boys. I mean, I don't need to tell you that just because I say so, that doesn't mean it can't win. But I just don't want to dip too far down into the projections. It's just me. Yeah, so we're gonna see. I'm gonna update the projections now, and then we're gonna see what that does to this New Orleans value. I also it makes I don't know what do you do now? Now I guess Ingram's got to be a decent player, right? Just for pure usage. So what I'm doing now is literally updating the raw projection files. hopefully when Bobby comes in, he'll have more of an insight. Hope he knows that Zion is out. He's pretty good at adapting to that stuff on the fly, though. I want to play Yahoo tonight. That'd be interesting. I haven't played Yahoo in a while. You guys got to be on it to get more news as it comes in. So Chen, yeah, no, I definitely like him. But let's just see if we still like him in light of the New Orleans value. You know what I mean? Like let's see if this other New Orleans value didn't eclipse So Chan as the best play. Maybe we should just play Ingram and McCollum. That'd obviously be easy. You know, the Zion's points are going to go somewhere. Presume those guys. Actually, almost done with the new update here. I definitely think that it's a game stack slate. I still don't think it's going to be particularly high scoring. So with that said, I think you should try to game stack a little bit. And we said, which is your favorite one? I mean, I guess Sacramento. I guess it would be to try to do Durant with either Sabonis or Fox. And as we talked about, you really can't do both. All right, so let's run this. Let's run this thing here. Subscript out of range. Just to finish up my last 10 minutes before Bobby gets here, I'll do this, then I'll look at it, we'll see what it looks like, then I'll build some lineups maybe. And then we'll probably get the news that Luka is out, right? That's just the way it goes in the content world. Yeah, for those of you who didn't notice, the MMA DFS is now late swap, presumably to accommodate those situations where your fighter gets, scratched after a lock, which is kind of really annoying. I don't think DraftKings thought it all through. I think that making late swap MMA is a real hassle. And all it does is it creates more of a gap between casual players and strong players, which is not good for the ecosystem in general. But okay, let's take a look. See if there's any difference here. So now let's just first start by point per dollar again. Yeah, so McCollum gets up here. So now these Trey Murphys are not looking that great. You know what I mean? Like they're fine. They're not like locks or anything like that. So yeah, it doesn't. I still get like all this Utah business. And then as far as Sheets value score, I mean, it's all kind of the same as before. So the one thing I would say, there's Bobby, is that McCollum is now a much McCollum and Ingram are much stronger priorities than they were before. All right, Bobby.
So I don't think I'm going to be able to take over exactly because unfortunately I couldn't make it all the way home. I had to stop at a Starbucks and I don't want to talk too loud. The traffic was a little too lousy today.
I'll ask you the question. I'll ask you a question related to what just came out, that Zion was not playing.
Yeah.
When I just reran everything, like the New Orleans value didn't get as much of a bump as I thought it would. But the guys that did get bumped are like the regular players, you know, like McCollum and Ingram were the ones that got the big bump for me. I didn't really get that big of a bump for the Trey Murphys and the other guys in New Orleans. What do you think of that? And what do you think of all this Utah value? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. What am I missing with the Utah value that you're talking about?
The fact that like the top like 7 values on the whole slate are Utah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know if that's even real value. To be honest with you,
that's what I said. You know what I mean?
That's really. There's nothing particularly that stands out about it being. Yeah, none of the value is really good tonight, to be honest with you. And sure, will somebody get there? Probably, but I'd rather play Hartenstein, Sohan, and then you'll probably end up getting value later in the evening the more you delay. So that would be my strategy in general, is to play the later games. I think they're better games anyway. The one thing I would say is that I think Ingram is, and like you mentioned, Ingram and McCollum are both significantly better plays than they were earlier in the day. And I think you could pick one of those guys. I think McCollum stands out a little more on DraftKings. Ingram stands out a little more on FanDuel. And if I was going to take a shot, I guess I would pick Trey Murphy. But we've seen this story so many times, and it's not like anybody has to smash from this value perspective. That's everybody's first thought all the time. But you got to remember, like we've seen, 30% of the games have been like this, and nothing ever stands out about any of them. Then we really shouldn't be trying to force stuff in that's not real. But if there was one, I would pick Trey Murphy. And with the only thing that scares me a little bit about maybe not acknowledging the value is that maybe Najee Marshall could play a lot of minutes tonight, especially in this kind of a matchup. He could get there, so he would be the one that is the super value who's not projecting for much on SaberSim, but I'm looking at some other projected starting lineups. If he ends up starting, he'll probably be the guy you want to use. Again, huge bus paths, lots of things, but he's one of the few guys in the 3K range that you can play tonight. So that's what I've got for now. I'm still counting on some news from the later game, so I'm like playing the delay game, and I'm basically, I'm playing Ja in this first game. I'm playing some Steven Adams, which has to do a lot with ownership. I'm trying to get less Dylan Brooks than I currently have, and I have Conchar on FanDuel. And then on the other side, I'll run back one of the big guys. But most of my plays are going to be in the later games today, specifically the Brooklyn-Sacramento game, until we hear about somebody sitting for the Spurs. It is a back-to-back for the Spurs, and it's pretty usual that someone sits. One guy I wanted to ask you about who you're projecting, why isn't Trey Jones like I think he's like probably one of the best like mid-range values in the slate, and no one's really treating him like that.
Well, I'm getting him as like in almost all my lineups, at least for now.
Okay, yeah. I saw your projections had him a little bit lower, so I was wondering. But he was sort of the guy who I was like, why is he going to be 10% when he should have been 30% on this slate, or 40% or something like that? Yeah, so he was a guy.
This was my logic tonight. On a slate that does not have the best value, I really wanted to construct my lineups with like kind of game stacks in mind, like. Meaning that if I was going to play Durant, I'd play him with Fox or Sabonis. If I was going to play Morant, I would play him with now McCollum and or Ingram. If I was going to play like the Utahs and the Knicks, I'd play Markkanen with say Randall and Brunson or something like that. I think that I can't prove this, but it seems that on slates that don't rate the score all that well, you benefit that much more from like correlative.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. The last short slate we had, I lost because I had no players from the game, but I ended up I had the best score of anybody in the top 100. I finished third in of anybody in the top 100 that didn't have it anybody from that game in their lineup. So I do agree though. If you can lean more towards stacks on smaller slates, I think there's even an argument on bigger slates we can get into another time. But I agree with that way of thinking, especially even in the 1v1 situations and everything. Even last night was a sort of a bigger slate that played kind of small. But I committed to like, okay, well, I'm going to basically be chalk everywhere, and I'll just play Booker and what's his name to get off the chalk, Booker and Butler in the same game. I like doing that kind of a thing. Sumner is the same play he is every day. You could take a shot there. He's in the later game, so I would give him a little bit more of a boost. Probably worse for him than it has been because Seth Curry will be back for this game, who was out the last game because it was a back-to-back. So I'm not getting too much Sumner, but I may end up with him in a lineup or two to answer that question. Ben Simmons, I have no interest in that. And the Luka or Ja question is not a real question. You don't ever go into it and decide guys who are $2,800 difference. It's like are we playing Ingram or are we playing Hartenstein? Like it's just not a thing I think of. You know what I mean? So I don't think of it Luka versus Ja. Like they're just completely different plays. So, by the way, how are you doing? Are you feeling better? Doctor good?
Yeah.
Good. But I still haven't finished building, as I said, I just got here. But pretty much my early builds, for those of you who are on our site, are pretty similar to what they were. Might make a change or two. Things that are worth pointing out between the site differences: Conchar, Dylan Brooks, Paul George, Marcus Morris. All those guys are significantly better plays, in my opinion, on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. That's the main thing I wanted to let there. Sorry, it's a little loud here. I'm trying to do the best I can, but I rushed my best and I just couldn't make it home.
Are you getting any Jose Alvarado?
It's just trying to create value when there's no value, in my opinion.
Yeah, I get it.
But like there is an argument for that play just because they like him. He's a part of the rotation, and they'll if things are going really right, you could see him playing extra minutes anytime. The question is like, who does it take away from? And it wouldn't even surprise me if one of these days you saw him get like a sneaky surprise start. But he's sort of the same play he always is. You know what I mean? It's not like Zion being out is this huge benefit to him. First of all, Zion's been out a lot of the time. But the game pace and the matchup, maybe with Ja out there, maybe they do give him some extra minutes. So I kind of like that idea a little bit. I would rather that's where I would rather play like a Sumner, though, even though I don't like Sumner. But just because he's in the later game, using that guy in the first game, when I'm pretty sure that somebody is going to sit from some side in the later games. It just always happens. We have back-to-back teams playing, and I can't believe that won't happen again tonight. Sheets, you missed you know how that brutal that Washington touchdown was for me last night.
I know
that alone, the game-ending touchdown cost me an extra like $40,000, and it was 3 entries I played, and the $15 that was it. And I played. It would have won both the 222 and the SPY, and it was the one I designated to just leave in the one. So it was very frustrating on that basis.
That's a nasty beat. That those showdown defensive touchdowns are nasty at the end.
Yeah, it's really nasty at the last play of the game, and it was my guy who caught it, my low-owned guy too. So it was like I was jumping up because Watkins was having a big. It was really frustrating with my.
That's
right. But then the defense outscoring him cost me an extra, I think, 4 places. So the question from Rich B is irrelevant. Steven Adams is Steven Adams was in my original build anyway. I don't think Zion being in or out makes any difference whatsoever to Steven Adams. He was fine anyway. Hartenstein or O'Neal on FanDuel Power Forward. It's Hartenstein for me. Sheets. Who do you like, Hartenstein or O'Neal?
Hartenstein.
Same here. Although, in all transparency, I do have both of them in my original build, so that's it. Royce O'Neal's still fine on FanDuel. Again, if Royce O'Neal puts up, we know enough playing this game, and if you ever watch Royce O'Neal play, if he puts up 10 fantasy points, like as Sheets would say, you just have no right to complain. Because he has a wide range of outcomes. He's been incredibly consistently good this year, which is kind of weird for a guy who's so low usage. But you just got to count on him getting a couple steals, getting some assists, getting some rebounds, and maybe he scores 10 points. Josh Hart's fine, but not a priority for me. I actually think Josh Hart is. Yeah, I think he's totally fine, but certainly not a priority if you assume Nurkic is back. That's the other thing. We don't know about Nurkic either. You know, still officially questionable.
That is true.
For a guy who's officially questionable 3 times in a row and has not played in any of those games. So if Nurkic is out, Josh Hart becomes a really good play. If Nurkic is in, Josh Hart is he's just an okay play. That's what he is.
Right.
Okay, if that's okay, I'm gonna get to my builds pretty soon, but I don't think I have a whole bunch else to touch on for this thing.
Yeah, so I'll just let everybody know what I'm doing. So I'm playing. This is like. Oh wait, I'm gonna fix this. One of the things that I'm doing with SaberSim tonight again is I'm not playing like 4 guys from the freaking Jazz. You know, it's just not gonna happen. I'm not playing 4 guys from any team. If you want to know the truth.
From any team, yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is that what I'm doing is I'm forcing in like those mini stacks that I spoke about. So what I did, just so you guys know, so I locked in, for example, like Ja with one of the New Orleans guys, and then I ran SaberSim after that. And then other lineups, I locked in Randall Brunson with like Lowry or something like that. And I'm gonna run. Then I did Durant with Fox, and I did some more with Durant and Sabonis. So I'm combining like my kind of own instinct that you want a game stack, and then I also letting Saberson kind of help me build in that way. So that's my approach tonight.
That makes sense. I think you may end up finding yourself where a couple spots you could leave money on the table a little bit tonight. I know it's weird to say, but like if you do a middling builds, one thing about it was it sort of like tries to get you to play a high price guy and reach for value. And if you don't do that, you sort of end up in this funny mid range where I kept ending when I was trying to build earlier with like 500 left on the table. I think that's fine today. I think Podol's fine.
It's really interesting that you said that because I want to see how it looks now. Because earlier, when I made a build earlier today, I ended up with some lineups with like 1,000 left on the table.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I don't know if I have it anymore, but
yeah,
it's interesting because you don't usually leave that much when you play.
Yeah, but I mean, every now and then this is a small slate. There's ways to get weird, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
The question about Podol, I do like Podol. Given the if I knew Nurkic was healthy, I would like Nurkic a little bit better than Podol, but not much. I don't like the back-to-back for Podol, but I do like that he only played 20 minutes last night. So I do like Podol, yes. The Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray are the same play to me tonight, and I have a little more Keegan Murray than I do Barnes, but both are fine. And look, and you guys are on top of it. Dunbar's on top of that one. Ben Simmons take it. I don't really have a reason to try to play Ben Simmons unless something is announced later. FanDuel, he's cheap, I guess. That's the argument for playing him. Never gets there, but I guess he's cheap on both sides. Never gets there. He's in kind of a worse spot now, not playing more than 20 minutes. He played 23 minutes. So since all this new stuff's happened. So I would certainly not be trying to play Ben Simmons. Sohan, I do like Sohan. I think Marshall and Herb Jones are completely in play, but they're different prices a little bit. I on FanDuel, I would play Marshall. I would play Jones over him. I would not play Marshall over him unless Marshall's starting. And if Marshall starts, I like Sohan still, but I would add Najee Marshall to my pool. Let's see. Is Trae Young my favorite? Yeah, Trae Young is by far my favorite Spur. So when you ask questions about point guards on FanDuel,
Trae Jones,
yeah. Like Brunson on FanDuel, is Brunson fine? Sure. He's a little worse on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, and I like Trae Jones better at a cheaper price. Dylan Brooks he's 5,200. Again, you have no right to complain, though, if Dylan Brooks has 10 fantasy points. No, he is an absolute wild card. No, I would not like to. Oh, the big three together on FanDuel? No, I would try not to do that. I would play one or two of them and not the third. This is not as huge of a breaking news. We've had Zion out for 2.5 years. Let's remember. Ja Morant, Al Adams, and I don't know where you're getting Aldama from. I don't think Aldama is going to start, which Jaren Jackson being back, assuming that he does in fact start, I would certainly take I wouldn't be playing Aldama for sure, unless Aldama is starting and Jaren Jackson doesn't play. But no, the other play is Dylan Brooks. He's the obvious one. Dylan Brooks, not only does he get in foul trouble, he just doesn't do anything offensively when Ja's there. You need him to score. You need him to score like 25 real life points to get 30 some odd fantasy points. What he does do is he's willing to shoot too much. So he shoots a ton. He's coming off a 27 fantasy point game in a great matchup against a Washington team that plays fast, and he put up 27 fantasy points with a 37% usage rate. That's like almost impossible to do, even if you missed all your shots. Luka or Ja is not a question, Nick. I'm not gonna. I don't even understand where that comes from.
I have the answer.
Well, but there's not. No. But more than I want to make a point. Is there an answer? How can you answer to guys like? Are you playing Hartenstein cheats? Or are you playing Brandon Ingram?
No, because this is the answer. The answer is, and this is what I was saying at the beginning of the show, is that on a slate like this, I would much rather play guys that you could play guys from the other side with confidence. So in this particular case, I do have an answer that I'd rather play Ja because of New Orleans guys I know that I can play. I would not rather play Luka without knowing, anybody really good to play on the other side. But what Bobby's point is extremely well taken is that to compare you know, a 12-5 guy to, you know, a 10K guy is like kind of like apples to oranges.
Yeah, they're just different. No interest in Jeremy Grant at all. Just making up a name if we're playing Jeremy Grant at this point, to be honest. John Joval are both totally good plays, I think.
What do you think of
that
Jordan
one-
Clarkson?
I like KD tonight, by the way. I think Jordan Clarkson is being way over projected, and just the easiest fade of all time. I don't care what happens with the results.
Okay.
If he's going to be 30% owned, you shouldn't be playing him at 6,300. If he was going to be 10% owned, I'd be playing a lot of Jordan Clarkson, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of these Utah guys are being way over projected because of the Knicks' pace lately and the three-point shooting, I guess. But like, you're really just taking shots at darts on Utah. It could be THT, it could be Beasley, it could be Sexton. It's just it's just a wild card, you know, take a shot thing. The Reddish game was an anomaly, yes. Even if he does it again, it's still an anomaly. We all knew it was going to come at some point, but unfortunately, it came at the 2% ownership, and I wasn't playing on the weekend, so I didn't get him.
Oh, me, it was worse. I played him and I didn't win anyway.
What's that?
Me, it was worse. I got it and didn't win anyway.
That's the worst. That is the worst. So we've still got 45 minutes, guys. I'll be in Discord before lock. I'm going to stay here and finish building my lineups. It's a little self-conscious because people are staring at me. Starbucks here. Paul George or Brandon Ingram. Again, very different price tiers. I'm guessing that's a FanDuel question. Again, they're very different price tiers. I don't know where the decisions come, but I like both of them tonight. I have both of them in my main build. I guess Ingram point per dollar is the best way to answer that. Yeah, I am getting to Seth Curry on FanDuel. I'm trying DraftKings. I just think that it makes sense for attacking this. Why is Malik Monk projecting higher than Seth Curry even? I don't even understand that one. You know what I mean? Seth Curry got the extra day off. He didn't play the back-to-back. He's coming back from the injury, probably going to play 28 minutes. I'll take that shot against the Kings. If Marshall starts, I play him. I gotta pick something. No, it gets me so frustrated. Marshall and Jones are different price tiers. One's 3,200, one's 4,500. These are not. You don't decide one or the other. That's just not the way you should be playing. So that's not. So no, I'm not going to say that. I would absolutely not say that. I would play him over Jones. There's no he over Jones thing. You know what I mean? They're completely different prices. No matter what happens, I don't think I'd play Najee on FanDuel, but it's probably okay to if he's starting. I just don't love it. We've seen him get there and fail when Brandon Ingram, Joval, and Zion were gone. Yeah, I don't even think that's a fair than a FanDuel. Then you shouldn't be playing. If the answer is that close for you, you probably want to play the guy who's the better player who's going to play the more minutes in Herb Jones. Thanks, Nick. Sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm feisty. I always try to beat these points in because they're what, in my opinion, other sites don't do to give people real information. They say they'll answer questions one guy versus one guy. And until recently, there's some good guys out there. I'll give a shout out to Meansy. He's really good about this. You just can't pick guys in thousands of dollars apart and think you're playing one over the other. No, I do not think John Wall is a good pivot. There's always upside. It's more perceptive upside. It's like more like possible upside. I think he's gotten there once this year. No, I guess he kind of got there twice. But no, I don't prefer John Wall unless the late news comes in that Reggie Jackson is sitting or something like that, which is possible on a back-to-back for the Clippers, but I don't think so. I just don't think you can get a direct pivot.
No.
Go ahead.
No, nothing. No, not you, Bobby. No, not yet.
Oh, the Bills Vikings take. Weird football game. I think the Vikings are the worst 8-1 team I've ever seen. I also think they have a lot of talent. I would not bet on them for making a Super Bowl run this year. I don't trust Cousins. I don't think he's good. I think that with that talent on the outside, anybody's basically that talent everywhere. The line, the pass blocking line, and everything else they've got. I do think they've added the pieces they needed, and they're going to make as much of a run as they can with them. But I don't trust Cousins. All right. Any other questions or thoughts, guys, before I finish my builds here?
It'll be 5 minutes, Dave.
Okay. Oh, you're talking dates. THT is just is a wild card play. It's just it's it's the kind of slate where you probably could get away with it because it's such a wild card play and it makes no sense as being especially good tonight. But no one's going to play it, and we don't have value that really stands out. So if there was a time to do it, this is probably the time to do it. The minutes basically seem stuck at nothing above 19 or 20 minutes. He's capable of producing in that period of time against this team. So I have no problem taking a long shot play on THT when there's no other value. But it's not like my favorite thing in the world to do.
That's what I said.
Favorite? Oh, these are center on DK. Let's see who else is in my. Sabonis is my favorite center on DK. Anybody on any guy you got more than other sheets on DK?
No. I like Olenek, I guess.
Oh, Olenek, interesting. I didn't even I just cross those Utah guys out when they're popular. He's got what is he's like the third projected guy, right?
I have 16% owned. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and he's scored 30 fantasy points once every 15 games. Can't do it. Dinwiddie is a no for me with Christian Wood back, as we sort of appropriately covered before without Christian Wood. He's just a much better play. You could still argue for him. I think he's okay, but I probably won't play any Dinwiddie tonight with Christian Wood back. And I appreciate the kind words there from Nick Nelson, who loves the directness. This is how the way I know to do it. Joval or Claxton on FanDuel already have 5 pieces from the Memphis game. Jeez, that's a lot. I wouldn't have that many pieces as probably from the Memphis game. Maybe 5 is like the max magic number. So I don't know, Joval versus Claxton straight up is always going to be Joval, but yeah, Claxton is not a guy I ever considered playing. The answer is Joval, but if you're already using the other 2 star studs, maybe then you throw in Claxton, I guess. I think Joval is a much better play than Claxton, but I think, you know what? Maybe if you do have the other 2 guys studs, maybe playing Claxton is okay. I think that's actually okay. Nance is really, we've seen the situation a number of times for him, and he's a tournament dart. That's the best way I can describe him. I don't have him as anything more than that. I have him and Trey Murphy in a similar category, and if one of them starts, I would give that one a boost over the other one, but probably Najee Marshall starts. I mean, Portland's still got they're going to play 10 or 11 guys tonight, at least 10. Yeah, I don't know that I want to get heavily invested in the bench guys for the Pelicans on a 10-man rotation.
All right, I'm going to split.
Okay. All right, guys. Good luck to everybody. Sorry, Sheets. That was a little late.
It's okay. Good luck, everybody.
Good luck, guys.